Do 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 do.
She got that seat and wasn't going to give it up, was she? When I say you weren't even a teenager when Ronnie was a teenage idol. Ronnie started very young, I should mention.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I mean, he's now only 28, 29 years of age. Ronnie, the pop world was very good to you, and you were very good to it. And you came through at a very exciting time in Australia. There was yourself, and there was Johnny Farnham, there was Johnny Young, a whole team of people.
That's right. It was really the, I guess, when the fetal stage of the pop industry in this country, because there was rock and roll and Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly and all that, and then the Beatles came out, and it was around about that time that I got involved.
Ronnie, how did you break in back in those years?
Well, actually, my brother had a rock and roll band. I was doing a little bit of rock and roll, and on the side I was doing folk singing, because folk singing in Melbourne was very popular, all around Australia, actually. And then when the Beatles came out, it was like a combination of the two, and I thought, this is for me, and the long hair and all that.
There's a very early shot we've got here showing the people who went on to be greats in the pop industry. Who would have known when that photograph was being taken that Johnny Farnham, Johnny Young,
and
Russell Morris, who's still working around. I don't wish to be rude, but I know that's Russell, because you can't miss it, can you? With the he's got a most individualistic nose.
He has, and
Russell. Let's just have a look again. You can probably pick it for yourself. That's Russell.
Russell, yes.
If you're watching, Russell, nothing personal. I'd love you to come on the show someday. Have a nose job first. No, I mean, anytime you want to come on. Back in those years, who was the person you aspired to, Ronnie? Who was the person you looked up to?
I think probably there were two people. Billy Thorpe. I really liked his style and his movement. He used to click his feet together. But most of all, it was really Barry Gibb from the Bee Gees. And I really liked his singing style and his whole image. It was fantastic. I really liked it.
Ronnie, obviously a very clever man, because you realise that the pop industry sometimes chews you up and then spits you out. And you realised a couple of years ago that you wanted something else other than show business. And you decided on something which, at the time, I guess a lot of people would have thought, why? But you've shown them why and how.
It's true. I think the reason I really wanted to... I think with all that popular thing happening in the late 70s and the late 60s, it had to come to an end at some time. So I moved into cabaret. And so did Normie Rowe and Johnny Farnham and a lot of other people, Marty Rowan, people you know. And I think after about 6 or 7 years of that, I decided that having a family and a young family, I wanted to have a normal life and sort of come home at 5:30 and cook dinner with Maggie and do things like that. So it was about that time that I got out of it, yeah.
That's your boy there? His name
That's my daughter, Lauren. That was
is it really?
Nearly 15 years ago. And that was a baby carrier I designed to carry children on the front of the body, yeah.
You've got a Lauren too. It's a very popular name in show business, isn't it? Eh?
It's a lovely name.
Didn't you actually deliver your son?
Yes, Michael, he's 8, and he was born at home. We had a home birth with Michael, and as the doctor was his little head was poking out, he said, you better wash your hands. And I thought, oh, do I get the first cuddle? And he said, no, you can deliver him. But I knew a lot about it. I'd done a lot of study and work with Maggie and probably felt a lot of my own feelings about my own birth and things like that. So I was very there for him, and it was a beautiful experience.
What do you mean you felt something about your own birth?
Well, I'd done a therapy in Melbourne called Primal Therapy for about 4 years, and I actually trained to be a therapist. So I was working with people and their feelings, taking them back to postnatal experiences and interuterine experiences and childhood experiences.
What, before birth experiences?
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
What do you remember? How do you go back?
The body's like it's like a computer bank, and it stores the memory of a lot of the pain. It also stores the love and a lot of other lovely experiences, but unfortunately it stores the pain, and I think that we act out a lot of that pain symbolically as we get older into our adult life. You've obviously heard of the child inside of each one of us, and that has an expression. And so by reliving that and feeling it with no drugs, nothing, just feeling it through my feelings and going back and breaking down that connection and opening up that gating system in the brain that shuts us off. And we put things around us that hold that thing in place, like money, sex, buying antiques, just things that keep all that in check. And then when that sort of bubbles up, we don't like that pain. So what I did is I accessed it and went back through it and depthed it, found out things that had happened in my past and
what sort of experiences did you have?
Well...
did you discover?
I feel that for me, and this is... I mean, my mother's beautiful, and my mother and father are wonderful people, but they had their stuff coming through from all that Victorian era. And there was her anxieties having her second child, and it was just after the war. So she was nervous about the child, and was it going to be healthy, and all those normal things that women go through at pregnancy. And so all that apprehension of will I have him? Is it going to be all right? I better hang on a little bit more, and all that sort
And
of
while
stuff.
this is happening, you're going up and down.
Yeah, the baby's feeling all that. Bobbing around, I'm still bobbing.
Yeah.
And I feel that the fetus experiences all that sort of stuff, all those anxieties, experiences if the mother's eating junk food and smoking and things like that. So all I was doing was trying to clear some of that area for me and go back, and it's been very beneficial.
Ronnie, I know of another person in show business who went into primal therapy very, very heavily, and the story goes, it's now a legend, that people were at his place one night having dinner, and all of a sudden he felt a little uptight, so he excused himself and went into his primal therapy room, had a bit of a scream and belted his head against the cushioned wall, came back and poured himself a port and felt wonderful. So I thought the primal therapy really was shouting out and screaming, because, I mean, I think anyone would understand that when you're feeling very tense, uptight, or you're not happy, if you do your block, I mean, I believe this is true, I personally wouldn't know because I'm a very calm man, but if you do have a bit of a shout and a scream, eventually you feel a whole lot better.
Well, you do, don't you? People get to that point where they want to do that, but there's a connection. There's actually a connection that can be there, that you can take it back to the source of where that thing actually came from. And that's all I was doing, was just... The guy who started the whole therapy was Arthur Janoff in America, and he said that there was a primal pool of pain that we were able to empty out. I don't believe it could be emptied. All I felt from myself was that I could access this information that was there, clear the deck, and just to move on, because we're here to, as human beings, to understand something about life and it's just some wonderful, wonderful things.
Donna, you've had traumatic times, particularly with your mum dying, and also the fact that her death was a slow one because of cancer. How did you come to terms with those sort of things?
Well, that wasn't that easy for me. I didn't have a screaming therapy. I think I found myself a little drink occasionally. That was my therapy, but I don't do that anymore. No, and I don't.
Well, whatever gets you through the night.
No, it wasn't. I did find that very difficult, going through that period with my mother, as lots of people do. I'm not the only one that has gone through that terrible thing. There's lots of people out there.
You've got to find your own
but
cure,
I
have you,
can't.
Ron?
Well, it's a very lonely time. It's an extremely lonely time, especially with death, but there are things that are high on that sort of stress level.
Do you mean all I had to do is have a bit of a scream?
Well, really, and I can only talk from my own experience, and that is that if you can understand what's going on, I mean, there is the grief. There's a grief happening, which is here and now, which is that loss of your mother, and you need to experience that, but something else is going on too, because there's all that sense of loss and how you're going to cope without her, so it all comes back to the self. And I feel that by reliving that or understanding that connection inside you, it can take a little bit of that out of the way for you to understand what's truly going on in the now. That's all.
It's very interesting, Ronnie, and certainly you've given me something in which I can fill in the commercial breaks. Just wander around, have a bit of a scream and whatever.
At the back, yeah.
Ronnie, one of the things you mentioned before was renovating homes, and that's what you're really into now. We're almost out of time, but we couldn't let you go without showing people some of the beautiful work you do. My wife is your biggest fan. Whenever you're renovating a home and it's open for the public, Patty is the first in. She dives in there.
She's an inspiration.
And comes home and says, "Guess what Ronnie's done now?" And I say, "Look, excuse me, I'm just going for my primal therapy." This is some shots we took of a home not all that far away from the studio in which we're speaking now. Of course, we haven't got any before shots, but I can promise you, folks, that most of the work that you see is the work of Ronnie Burns. When you move into an old home to make it new and give it that Ronnie Burns touch, what's the first thing you look at, Ron?
Well, in the case of this one that you're seeing now, it's a brand new Victorian home. All I left standing was one room of the old house. But usually this particular one is what is called a spec home, and that's currently on the market at the moment. But I do a lot of work for clients where the first thing to do is understand the brief properly. So if someone comes to me and they say, we want to add this on the house or put a couple more bedrooms, is to listen to what the person's saying. I have an expertise in that area. I do all the architectural drawings, do the interior decorating, landscaping and swimming pools, do the whole lot. So I can offer something, and whatever of those components they need, I adjust it to them. I adjust it to their living style, their family, whatever.
In promoting the fact that you're on the show today, yesterday I said you've made a fortune out of doing this. That isn't true, is it? I suddenly realised, of course, Mr. Keating might be watching the show.
My other partner.
Your other partner, yeah. Are times hard for people who do your sort of work?
I think if you're in the speculative area, it might be, but Melbourne, I guess all around Australia, is coming alive with renovation, and all the streetscapes, like with little Victorian homes, are all coming. You must see all the picket fences are coming up, and all the Victorian homes are coming back into their time. So people are concentrating on themselves, on their own homes, and not speculating so much. It's good.